Hey, this is Anney.
And Samantha.
And welcome to Stuff I've Never Told You, a production of iHeartRadio.
And today, y'all, we are so excited because we have someone on who I know personally. Yeah, that's right. I know some cool people. And she and I are what we would call workout friends. And of course, friends. But also, like, she really pushes the boundaries for me because she is that good. And I'm like, oh my God, how do I keep up with her? But that's a whole other story. But with that, during our times together, we recently started talking about our current work. And this is when she was telling me about her job and her work. And I had so many questions. I actually kind of chased her down because she was like, I got to go. But I'm like, wait, but I have more questions. But anyway, with that, and since I get the privilege of being on a podcast, I thought, what better way to ask her all of these questions about her career, but doing it on the podcast. Yeah, that's right. I will take advantage of the situation. So first and foremost, welcome my friend Ivy.
Hello.
I'm so excited, Ivy.
So happy.
That you're on here. Can you tell our listeners about yourself and also about your work?
All right. Hi. I'm Ivy, otherwise known as Yvenarde. I am currently a construction project manager. And that basically means, if you don't know what it is, there are two sides of construction. There's residential and there's commercial construction. I am on the commercial construction side, meaning I build, office spaces, recreation buildings. Sometimes there can be some outdoor spaces like parks. It's a very, very wide variety field. Specifically, I've personally worked on hospital renovations ground up, which basically means, civil work, doing all the utilities underground, and then you build up from there. Higher education with colleges and universities, as well as governmental buildings and governmental spaces. And even within construction in and of itself, there are two sides of that. There's construction project management, and then there's superintendent work. The construction project managers basically manage the budget, documentation, RFIs, which means requests for information from the architect, submittals, things like that. The paperwork that's required to make sure that the building the owner wants is going to get built per their specifications, per the architect's drawings and specifications. And then superintendents, who are basically my partners in crime. They are out in the field. They're managing all of the workers and trades who are actually out there building, the plumbers, the electricians, civil, any and all drywallers, paint, millwork, every aspect of the people who are touching the building. Superintendents are basically in charge of overseeing the work in the field. And then I concurrently will be sometimes on a job site trailer or in my own office, making sure that the work in place is tracking with how much I'm basically paying out the subcontractors, as well as the progress of work is aligning with what the owner is paying us and the progress they want to see throughout the lifetime of, the schedule from start to finish.
Dang. So you're like the backbone of these projects. I'm like, wow, the in-depth level of what you do, as well as what is going within construction, because obviously it has to have a lot of moving parts in order to get this done. And the background, the behind-the-scene workers have so much responsibility in making sure that it is done, that it is completed, it is finished, and that it is stable.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Whether it's, providing, making sure that people are getting paid, people are getting what they need, people are getting the information that they need, which I think people kind of forget about when you see something like a structure, like a hospital, and you're like, oh yeah, this is how it gets done. Yeah. And this is one of the reasons I wanted to talk to you, because I'm like, oh my God, I don't think I know any women in the construction world. I'm trying to really think, I thought about all the people that I've met throughout my lifetime, and I don't think I've met anyone who really was a part of that field. So you don't see what's happening behind the curtains at all. I don't know. I'm just like, oh, cool, that's a cool building. End of story.
Right.
For me. And before we start, I did want to start with some statistics, because I think it's important to remember why conversations like this are important and why we should be asking questions from people who are within this industry. according to one site, laborfinders.com, they said in 2022, about 1.3 million women work in the construction industry, accounting for about 10.9% of this blue-collar workforce. This statistic represents a 53% increase in women working in construction over the last decade. Washington, D.C. has the highest concentration of female construction workers, making up 17.6% of the workers in this field. States like Arizona and Florida also have a higher concentration of women working in construction, with 15.6 and 14.5% of their workforce, respectively, according to recent reports by the Washington Post. And I'm going to say recent reports maybe in the last couple of years as well. And if you are wondering, in Georgia alone, the percentage of women in the construction field make up 8.1%. So quite a bit lower
Quite.
than the rest of the country. Actually, yeah. So I honestly was surprised by the numbers in Florida. I'm not going to lie. I actually didn't expect Florida to be as high as it was because it exceeded the average. And again, this is one of the reasons I was so fascinated by the fact that you are in this industry. Again, like I said, I don't know many women. I don't know any women in this field outside of you now, which I feel very privileged. Thank you. That is in this field. So let's just dive into this. How did you get started in this field?
Well, I actually always wanted to be in construction, surprisingly. A lot of people are surprised to hear that, but I grew up in Haiti, and I grew up in a house that was being constructed from the time I was born. So I was around, so houses in Haiti are like 95% concrete or CMU. And so I grew up around workers, like mixing concrete in my yard. I grew up around rebar, and I just really, really loved it. And also growing up in an immigrant household, you have three options: doctor, lawyer, engineer. So it was limiting in the sense that like that was the path that was expected of me. One of those three was expected of me. I initially was thinking about going into law. But I really fell in love with math in school. I loved math. I loved physics. And so I just kind of started to steer towards engineering. Ended up majoring in civil engineering, and then went into construction immediately after graduation. And knew that I wanted to go in the GC field. Basically, when you major in civil engineering, you have to take your FE, which is Fundamentals of Engineering, in school in preparation to become a PE, which is a practicing engineer or a practitioner engineer. And you have to, work under an engineer for a couple of years, depending on state, to get your stamp and things like that. I didn't want to design, all that to say. I did not want the liability, to be honest with you. I didn't want to design. I wanted to be in the field, like in the dirt. I wanted to see and be part of the work and be part of, like construction in and of itself, people don't really think too deeply about, but it is like one of the main building blocks of society. You cannot go to work, you cannot go shopping without having a road to drive on, without having a building to go into. People don't think about the fact that like without AC, the building is suffocating. Without running water, without the pipes that are underground, and without that network, we really can't function as easily as we actually can. And so I love being part of an industry that is, a part of building and renovating and maintaining society in and of itself. It's that concrete result that I can always drive down the road and say, I was part of that building. I know every nook and cranny of that building right there. So that's kind of what got me started. Like I love puzzles. I'm a very practical and logical person. And so with the math, with the physics, going into engineering, civil engineering specifically, really was an easy next step for me. And I mean, I just went straight into general construction. I've been in the industry for about 7 years, a little bit over 7 years now since graduation. Started out as a PE, which is a project engineer, then senior PE, and now I'm a project manager, where, PEs are more focused on that documentation and making sure like every detail, like soap dispensers, you don't think about toilet paper dispensers, like every meticulous little thing that is part of a building that makes each aspect fit next to the like other, whether it's, I don't know, a countertop that might be too wide and it's natural stone. Natural stone cannot be cut to certain shapes sometimes. So it's like understanding that, oh, this thing can't actually be this magical shape that the architect might want, and having that practical knowledge. And as well as, the owner is paying for, has a budget and is paying for a certain building in a certain look. So it's kind of, as I've been in the industry longer and longer, it's less of, okay, let me keep my head down and look at the details and trying to make sure everything fits, and more of, okay, let's have a conversation and make sure that what you have budgeted is practical and I can actually fulfill exactly what you want. So it's an ever evolving role. It has been, at least for me, that I very much enjoyed. And, the higher I go, it's more of course, office politics that you got to learn to manage relationships with your own teammates as well as with the owner and architects, because the owner and architects are the ones who are potentially going to give you your next job. You never know. It's, being able to maintain really, really strong relationships. It's a small industry in Georgia. It's a small industry in general. There are most of us know each other or know of somebody in construction once you're in it, to be honest with you. So it's just, I don't know, it's just something that I'm really deep in it at this point. And I've enjoyed every step of the way.
I love that. So we've got two math nerds here. Not me. It's you and Anney.
Wow. Oh my gosh, Samantha.
Nope, not me. I really wish it was me, because once upon a time I thought I was good at it, and then I got higher and higher up. I'm like, no, just kidding. That's not for me. Never mind.
But it gets fun. You get into calc 2, and it's just
and now
gets
I
a
don't
little
trust
blurry.
you. And now I don't trust you, Ivy. It gets fun, she says. I can do the basic multiplier, and I know how to do the tip stuff. That I got. But no, I love that. I love that conversation, because I don't often think about what goes into preparing yourself for these types of occupations, and civil engineer could be stretched to so many different things. And I love that this is how you came through. I also loved mixing up concrete when I was younger. So I definitely feel you. There was some satisfaction, the sand, the gravel, and then like seeing it getting to like a clay formation. You're like, yeah, I made that. I don't know. There was something satisfying about making concrete. But I love that you were able to go with that route. Anney, you've talked a lot about how you were prevented in loving math because they told you, men are not going to like you.
The teacher told me
I'm not gonna tell you your story. You can tell the story here.
Yeah, I was really good at calculus, and there was this other boy in class who was really good at it, and he hated that I was better than him. And the teacher took me aside and said, "Look, boys are never gonna like you if you continue to be good at math." And unfortunately, that meant a lot to me at the time, which is very funny now, because now I'm like, I'm good. But at the time, it was like, oh, well, I guess I won't. And I actually ended up taking physics in secret. So no one knew I was doing it. But it's really sad to me looking back that I was so turned away by a teacher.
A teacher?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Mm-hmm.
Which I hope, Ivy, you never experienced that. But it sounds like even if you were, you're like, I don't notice. I love it. So.
Yeah, I've kind of been a fairly independent thinker since I was young. So if I'm good at it and I'm doing well, I'm getting the grades. What else is there?
Right.
Yeah, I was highly motivated by academics. I will say, growing up, I was deterred from joining sports.
Really?
Yes, it was this idea that you need to be a homemaker. My parents were very focused on academics. Of course, it didn't matter that there was math and physics, and those were, I guess, more boy centered subjects. They didn't care. They were like, right, ace everything. That's the expectation. But sports, no. I wanted to join cheer. I wanted to join track. The coach even came to me when I was, I think, in high school, freshman year of high school, even came to me because, you have little tests in PE. she came to me and was like, I would love for you to join the track team. I think you would do very, very well. And my parents said, no, you're gonna
Wow.
focus on academics. So then I think I joined culinary. I joined culinary for a couple of years.
Did you?
So I
You can
did,
cook?
yeah.
All right, we need to be closer
I
friends here.
can, yeah, I can cook a little bit. I can throw down a little bit.
Yeah.
Really? Uh, that's so funny. I find that really interesting in our pathways, like I was not, like, I am not from a typical, like, family, because I think Asian family similar, like, you need to be a doctor, family, you need a doctor, lawyer, one of these big high paying jobs. And I'm adopted. So my white family are like, yeah, college, congratulations. Like, that was kind of the growth that I had. But it is fascinating because you definitely jumped into something that you loved with the civil engineering and coming into this field. When you started this field, since then, what has your experience been? Like, you kind of already talked about how much you love it, but how has your experience been in this field?
Initially going into it, like coming into it from college, it was amazing. I got very lucky in that I joined a company that was very mindful of making sure that they encouraged us to be in teams. And the teams that we were in, we stuck together, we grew together. So then it would just be an easier management of the project. We know our strengths, we know each other's strengths and weaknesses. And so we would be able to supplement each other. And we did. We balanced each other very well. It was a team of four of us, a project manager. Actually, it was a young project manager. He had moved from finance and had moved into the construction industry. And I think that was honestly a blessing more than anything because he was humble. He was not hesitant to say, there are some things that I don't know. And he said, I know you're new I'm sure that your education has given you a bit more knowledge on how to do certain things. So don't hesitate to, come to me and I will come to you and ask questions and we can lean on each other. We're a team. There was no ego in it. And as well as my superintendent was amazing, 3 decades of experience where he knew how to build a building from beginning to end and he knew every detail to look out for. So even with myself and my manager, when we were new, there are certain details that we didn't necessarily know how to look out for or what to look out for. And he would come to us and say, hey, FYI, in about 6 to 8 weeks, these things are going to be happening. You should probably start to make sure that we have all the paperwork and all of our ducks in a row when this is coming. And so that was just a really, really great team that we worked in, as well as the foreman that I worked with. She was a woman as well. So then there was a man and a woman in the office and a man and a woman in the field. And she was all hands on deck, ready to learn as much as possible. She was a sponge learning everything. And so it was the most amazing team. So I was with them for about 4 years in my first company. And that was great until the very end. Being in construction, I mean, not even in construction, but being a woman, being a Black woman on top of that, pay people, it's like pulling teeth. It's literally worse than pulling teeth. It has been the bane of my existence and my professional experience, honestly, just trying to be compensated for what I know I can do and my worth, just not even above and beyond, but my actual worth is kind of a struggle. So that was the reason I left my first company. And then I moved on to the second construction company. And from there, I was a senior project engineer. And then I actually got promoted to a project manager. You would think that having been promoted within a company, that it's, oh my gosh, it's even better than the first. They poured into me and all these things. No. I was in that company for about 3.5 years. And I want to say 70% of that was just absolute hardship. It was a struggle every step of the way. Even my promotion was not one where, they poured into me and they said, okay, we feel that after all of these things, you're ready to move on to project management. It was just kind of thrusted onto me. And because I was going to be leaving that company because I felt like what we had talked about when I initially went into the interview was, hey, I'm ready to transition to the next position. And I want to know and feel confident that you guys are going to pour into me to teach me to become the best project manager I can be. They said, yes, of course. And then a year in, still nothing. And so I was going to leave. When that happened, they lots of scrambling. They ended up promoting me, and I stayed. And so from that promotion, it was just, they kind of threw me from project to project. And it was a lot of office politics. The people who I felt like should have been, I would have liked them to be more of allies. They would say they're allies, but then the actions didn't really follow suit. So I will say the last 4 years of my career, 3.5 years, it's been good. I still love construction. I still love building, but it's the office politics. It's the politics, and realizing that now it's not about my competence so much as trying to navigate, the industry, the people. This is Georgia. The good old boy mindset is very much alive. It's who you know, it's how you can connect and make sure that, hey, I shake your hand with this person and make sure that you get this done for me. And I still, I'm aware of that. I just have difficulty being able to thrive in that environment. I'm still transitioning into from let me make sure all of my I's are dotted and all of my T's are crossed to let me make sure that I actually network accordingly and I have the right conversations with the right people internally as well as externally. And that's a critique for myself, to be completely honest. I have been aware of it even as I was transitioning to a senior project engineer. I have eyes, I have ears, and so I could see it. The action of transitioning to an adult to a certain extent, because even outside of professionalism, it's building your network. It's making sure that you are making the right connections in life so that it really comes to fruition, or it really just pours back into you. You pour into others, they pour back into you, and it's just an overall positive experience. That is part of adulting. And I completely acknowledge that. So it's like that in, professional, in your professional industry as well. So that's what I'm still working on, honestly. I'm trying to find what my niche is and what my flow is when it comes to making those connections and making them last with the owners, with architects, as well as with my internal team. So that I don't know, that may have sounded really, really sad. But honestly, it's not even the field. The field people, you would think this is what everyone tells me. Majority of the time when they hear that I'm a construction project manager is, oh my gosh, it must be so hard to get the men to listen to you and for them to do their jobs. No, actually, they're the easiest part of my job because I am competent. So they come to me with the problems that they see in the field or with payments and things like that. They're trying to just get their job done so they can go home to their families. They want to be safe. And I want to make sure that they are safe. I want to make sure they're fed. I want to make sure they're happy and they're healthy and hydrated out in the field. So that is my main priority. There's nothing else to it. And once we have that understanding, of course, there's ego sometimes. But once we have that understanding, it has not been an issue whatsoever. So I think my biggest struggle or hurdle has been navigating, the office politics, and relationships and things like that.
Right. I mean, that makes perfect sense in so many industries. I think it's part of the question is who is more likely to be welcomed into a network versus who isn't, who is automatically have to work the extra mile versus those who are just easily invited in. And
Right.
That often has a lot to do with who they expect to see, maybe, or even who have been ushered in through other people that they know, literally the son of somebody or the daughter
Right.
of somebody here, different things, and then being able to come in easily in a field. It's quite funny because we talk about in the podcasting industry that the majority of people who listen are women. They outrank men in the amount of people who listen and what types of podcasts that listen, but the most podcast hosts or people in podcasts are men. The people who are making the most money are men, even though the chunk of you would at least think it would be more even, if nothing
Right.
else. And it's
Right.
not. It is quite shocking because you're but why does it have to be like this? Why can't my work just be my work and you appreciate my work? Like, why do I have to be nice to you if I don't like you?
Right. Make it make sense. We are here to do our jobs and go home. Like, what is this?
Yeah. I mean, we understand politics as a part of it. We understand networking as a part of it, but doesn't mean it should be. Not in everything.
I completely agree.
Right?
I agree.
Right. Like, there's so many times of like frustration in knowing that your work, if it was just about your work, it would stand on its own, and you should be paid based on that. Like, if it truly was about that, and given the same opportunities, the equity in where you started, the amount of pay you get, the amount of opportunities you get, were all the same across the board, fantastic. You know, like you would feel more confident because I did that. Yeah, I'm good at this. Let's go. But the politics of it all really, like, some people, some especially the marginalized communities, have to do the extra effort, especially younger. Surprisingly, I think, especially in a field like that, I'm assuming, don't you tell me, that you have to prove yourself even more than those who just are known by name because they've been around for so long.
Yes, but surprising. So construction is going through a shift where there are the older generation who are retiring, and it's kind of becoming difficult where a lot of times they didn't teach, like there weren't systems in place to make sure that the younger generations were being taught, it's the standardized way of how a company is supposed to be building a building and run a project. It's been, I don't know exactly what the saying is, but like construction has been one of the industries that's the slowest to innovate. And so with that, what a lot of companies, I believe, have leaned on is every older individual, they are leaning on them to actually teach the younger generation within the project, within the team that they're in. And in actuality, they haven't been doing that. And then the older generation has been retiring. So it's not even that, the younger generation is having a more difficult time because they need us. We're the ones left. The older generation is leaving, but there's not really enough people to teach as well as to build the buildings. Right. You got to pick one or the other. If you have someone who's actually capable, you want to have that capable person out in the field to make sure everything is done as safely as possible. So then there are less bodies and there are less minds to actually pour into the youth. And so there's kind of, at least what I've seen, there's been a struggle in that transition. It's not necessarily that younger people are having a more difficult time being able to move up or anything like that. No, they're able to. If you're able to sell yourself well enough, if you're able to, speak well or like do the right things that others will be looking toward, and will be able to, you can check off certain things that will allow you to move up, then sometimes it's really not that hard. It's just, it's a little bit more discombobulated. I don't know how else to say it, to be honest.
I love that word, though. Yes. I love the word discombobulated. It's such a great word.
Yeah,
it feels like a cuter way of saying chaos.
I mean, I'm in it. So, like, I'm trying to be a part of the change. So I'm trying to be standardized and trying to write as much as I can, like, right. and teach the youth as much as I can as I go. But, yeah, that's construction in and of itself. Like, it's just... It moves at a different pace than everything else.
That's so fascinating because I haven't thought of like techniques when it comes to construction, although I should. Like, you would think, I guess my assumption would have been that they would be at the forefront of making sure the newest types of technology, the newest types of like materials are being used, especially if it's sturdier or better. Or I know, like with my house, I know this is completely different. I was told because it was built in like the 70s. Some things are like, don't replace that. If you replace that now, you're gonna mess yourself up because that is the best thing that they could have done. And unfortunately, it's no longer in existence and all of that. So that's interesting to hear. Like, I guess it makes both sense and also kind of baffling that they haven't moved forward in innovations. Why do you think that is?
I don't have a great answer to that question, honestly. I think, honestly, the old way of doing things was somewhat better, because now the new way of doing things with innovation doesn't necessarily mean that it's actually like safer, that it's actually more sturdy, that it's actually like for the better for of the building of the people for the long run. Innovation, I think nowadays, what's unsaid is that it's easier to produce. It provides that profit margin like a lot more quickly to those that it matters to. So you don't want that in construction though. Like you don't want to have innovative PVC, it's so lightweight and all this stuff. Like no, because there's there's fecal matter, there's like chemicals going through it. You don't want that to be innovative. You want it to be sturdy, and you want it to last basically forever, as long as forever can be, because what you don't want to do is what you see in Atlanta a lot of times, lane closures and sinkholes and things having to be maintained, and then your daily commute is interrupted. Like you don't want that. So to a certain extent, the slow pace is a blessing and a curse, because the slower it's moving, the less like profit margins we're really focused on. Like construction, I don't know if you have any data on this, and I don't have any data on this, but there's like a lot of construction waste. Construction yields some of the highest waste in general, and use of concrete has very, very high emissions. And so, of course, we have LEED, which is sustainability and trying to make a building healthier, and utilizing better, more innovative options. And to be honest with you, sometimes using those innovative options are more of a pain than just going the traditional route. So it's a more difficult problem to solve in construction, because technically being innovative sometimes causes more issues than solutions. And it causes people to cut corners where you should not be cutting corners when it comes to infrastructure.
Right. Ooh, I did a bad thing and went to look at the statistics since you asked.
Oh no. We probably should not air this. Oh my gosh, this is supposed to be positive.
No, we're not always positive. We're pretty big sad sacks over here. So according to bigrents.com, and I have no idea who they are, but this is their statistics that they got from the Transparency Market Research. Annual construction waste is expected to reach 2.2 billion tons globally by 2025. It generates over 6 million tons of construction-related waste, and that was in 2018, according to the EPA. And C&D waste generation in the U.S. increased by 342% from 1990 to 2018. Yep. So it's not great.
No, and that's been it's not like that's been the driving factor for innovation in construction specifically, is trying to reduce the waste in general, period. And that's kind of like one of the biggest tackle points, I guess, for LEED, in that we're diverting the waste. We have separate dumpsters for wood, for metal, for miscellaneous items. So then less things go to landfill and go to recycling facilities. So yeah, like there are many ways to try and reduce the general waste that can be caused from construction, period. But at the same time, it's still something you got to do. Imagine trying to build a table. You're not going to get exactly the length of 2x4s that you're going to need. You're going to buy more than you need, because you're going to have to cut angles. You're going to mess up a little bit. And so you always have to get a little bit more than than the exact amount needed to build that picnic table. So that's the analogy I can think of, is it's not just a picnic table. It's layered. We have insulation. You have cold form metal framing. You have gyp. You have paint. So it's layered to make sure the building stays warm, to make sure the building stays dry, to make sure that like it is a sustainable building for people to live, reside sometimes, or work in, and it be a healthy environment. So it just takes a lot. And sometimes you got to cut twice, measure 3 times, 4 times. And we're trying to be better at it. Absolutely. That's definitely something that everyone in construction is aware of, and we're actively trying to be better at. As well as we do, a lot of companies are implementing BIM coordination, VDC coordination, which is like virtual buildings. And so you'll have an engineer go and literally design the building with every component, sprinklers, with steel, with drywall, and build it virtually. So then we don't have to cut, 3, 4, 5 times, and we can lessen the amount of waste that is produced that way. So there are plenty of things that companies will implement to try to limit that waste. But yeah, it's still something that we generate a lot of.
Well, that's encouraging to hear that they're actually making efforts, and technology has helped a little bit in creating a way to not create as much waste, which is because in the end, we need buildings. These construction projects give jobs. We need stable hospitals that will provide the electricity in a manner that everybody can use it as needed, whether it's like a machine for, keeping someone alive, any of those things. So these are such an important conversation because we need it. But at the same time, like trying to do best to be stewards in the environment, because we know that the impact can be great, but that's just such a back and forth of like, what do we do? How do we do this? And also not cost millions of dollars for taxpayers and all of the other people as well. So it's a big conversation. I know this, especially when you're in this field, like, but it's not all bad. I promise. When you're trying to do your job, something that you did love and you do love. But coming back to, as we were talking about earlier, just talking about, growing in the industry and being a marginalized person, being a Black woman in the industry and having to really speak for yourself and making sure you're getting paid what you're worth. Because oftentimes in no industry, I don't think in one, unless they are a CEO or the person of like they own the company. And even then it's still harder to get what you're worth. Like it's just in general. Do you think you would recommend this type of these types of jobs in this field to other women or marginalized people?
Yes.
Yeah?
Absolutely.
Tell me why.
Because as every aspect of life is hard. If you're marginalized and being a woman, like honestly, pick your poison to a certain extent. But for construction itself, I would recommend it because like I previously stated, to see a building get built from the ground up is something that's very, very rewarding. And being in the field in and of itself, as long as you're able to show your competence, it's a very A plus B equals C equation. When you are out in the field, you show that you know what you're talking about, or you're willing to learn and ask the questions to make sure that everyone's life is well in the workplace and on the job site. Then there are not very many, hurdles or there's not a whole lot of pushback that you're going to get. I really, like I've said before, I really haven't had a lot of issues with trade partners and subcontractors. I have not hesitated in asking them questions because at the end of the day, we're all here. We're all contracted. At the end of the day, we all signed up and we are contracted to finish this building on time, safely, and on schedule as closely as possible. So we all have the same end goal. As long as that is the general understanding, I have not had issues in this industry. So with that thought process and with that experience in mind, I would absolutely recommend it. It can be, I don't know, when you're just looking at it, oh my gosh, construction is just full of men and all this stuff. Yes, but they're really, really nice. They're sweethearts. They all have families. They have children. Like they're not terrible people. They're human beings. And at the end of the day, we all just want to get home safely. We want to make sure that we get a good day's worth of work done, and then just go home and enjoy our lives. It can be long hours. I will say that. Long hours. Weekends sometimes. If you are near the end of a project, like I'm not going to sugarcoat that part. So if you're trying to look for, 3-day work week, no, not like at least not in not in project management, not when you are part of like the daily work that's being done on site.
Right.
You got to make sure that you're there when the owner needs you. Sometimes they just walk, depending on the size of the project, right? You sometimes have a job site trailer. You
Right.
rent out a trailer and you're there. So they will walk in and out, ask for updates. And so you want to make sure you're readily available for that. So I will say caveat long hours, but otherwise I would, just being realistic as to what to expect. As long as that's clear and there's that general understanding. Otherwise, I would absolutely recommend it.
Why do you think, or do you think, you can tell me I'm wrong, that it's important to have more women and marginalized people in the industry?
I think it's important for women more than anything else. I think that we as women sometimes internalize these messages that are broadcasted about what we're supposed to do, what a woman's role is. But in actuality, what really matters is, what do you want to do? What are you really good at? Are you good at robotics? Are you good at building things with your hands? Are you really athletic? Then go towards that. Like, it really doesn't matter what society says, because you're going to be judged. Like, no matter how nice you are, no matter how much you try to be, loved or accepted, like, unfortunately, you can't get everyone to like you. So why try? Why try to like fit into a box, into a mold that doesn't actually fulfill you and pour into you? And so I would encourage women in marginalized communities to go into this field, or any field that they may feel a bit uncomfortable getting into, because the more you have the guts to go into it, the more other younger generational people will see you and feel encouraged and see, wow, I can do it. And you can kind of set an example. I want to be that example.
You mentioned earlier that you were in this the industry is in kind of transition, and having younger people not have these standards, and you were like trying to teach younger people and writing these standards. How has that process been, and why do you think that is so important?
So I have never been officially assigned like a mentor, like as a mentor or a teacher to anyone younger, of the younger generation. But I do say that it's been impactful and it's been important, because honestly, the younger generation, they're always curious. I feel like that's something that never fails about them. They will always ask questions. Sometimes they don't know the right question to ask, but they'll find a way to get it out some way. And as long as they have like a listening ear, they will just babble, babble, babble on with all the questions and things that they want. So I personally really enjoy speaking with and connecting with the younger generation, just to figure out like, what do you like to do? What aspect of this entire thing calls to you? And then additionally, like, making sure that they have the building blocks, the foundation of construction in and of itself, which is simply being able to read drawings. A drawing set could be 300, 400 pages. And so it can be a lot to absorb. You have plumbing drawings, you have mechanical drawings, you have civil, you have landscape, architectural. And so it's being able to look at, okay, the architectural says this. If I flip it to the mechanical, it's going to show me what the ductwork in each room is supposed to look like. You need to understand what the layout of each room is going to look like, and kind of like visually create it in your mind, however it is. And sometimes BIM and VDC like helps with that a lot nowadays. But it's really just asking questions. I really enjoy having them ask me questions, and then I can dig into their heads and figure out exactly what aspect of construction calls to them, and what do they want to do, whether it's to build it physically, or be part of more of management and budgeting and things like that, or actually design it virtually. So it's just, asking questions, being patient, and waiting to see how they develop.
Okay, so I know I couldn't do this job. The reading of the picture, I'm like, oh, the geometry. Okay, yeah, I can't do that. Like that.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. No, I love this conversation because there's, again, knowing nothing about this field as much as like obviously this is an everyday thing that we should be thinking about how things are created and how things are made. Of course, I love appreciating an unusual building. We went to the Seattle library and I was like, whoa, this architecture is really interesting and how this got made and how they thought this through, like specifically of that. But to think about the background and the actual work it takes to even go start building something, it's phenomenal. Like, it's such a phenomenal context, and it's existed forever. Building or creating something has existed since the beginning of man. Like, it's just an amazing thought. I'm having an existential moment. But with that, what is one of the best experiences that you've had in this industry?
I think just turning over a building.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like being with the owner who was there every single day. So I did like a church renovation a couple of years back, and they literally demoed all of the seating in the sanctuary, and they were trying to basically make it more of I don't know, I'm not very religious. So, like the broadcasting churches, it was like a traditional church. So they were trying to make it a little bit more high tech, like add more seats and just revamp it entirely.
Right.
And so going into it initially, it was scanned incorrectly. And by scanned incorrectly, I mean that the surveyor who went into the space, the walls were supposed to exist, but everything within it was supposed to be demoed. So when they scanned it, there were inches, like 2.5 inch layer of plaster that from renovation after renovation after renovation that was there, that was supposed to be scraped off, and we get it down to the block basically. So when they scanned it to the plaster and all of the dimensions for the seats, and we were supposed to build the seats inside of the space. So all of the dimensions, the overall dimension was scanned to be this, but in actuality was this. And then on top of that, it was a rotating amphitheater with diagonal sides that were not the same angle. And so can you imagine trying to like
so just get stuck at one point?
I mean, yeah.
Facing the wall.
I mean, yeah. So we have to, like, life safety is something that you have to always think about. The end goal is making sure in case of an emergency, you have to have like 3'6" wide corridors and staircases. Make sure there's doorways. Make sure the doorways have like the space and egress required around it. If there's ADA chairs, like we need to make sure that like in and around that area is flat for the wheelchairs to sit on. So all of that was completely incorrect. And we were on a deadline.
Oh no.
But like this was part of the team that was on earlier in my career with the superintendent with 3 decades of experience, and myself and my project manager. And we were like, okay, we got a problem and we're going to solve it. Like this is construction. Like every day there's a problem in construction. That is something that I guess that's another thing that you have to consider if you do want to get into the field. It is problem solving on a daily basis. Because the drawings that are given to you do not account for what's in the real world. They're 2D. The real world is more than that. It's so much more. So it's making sure and being ready to go out there, pick the brains of every person and every expert you can find to help solving a problem. So all that to say, we started out with a huge problem. We got with our structural engineers, we got with the architects, we got with the owner who was right there with us, and we said, we're not starting off real strong, as we thought we were going to. We're going to be truthful with you now. Like it's not what we thought it was going to be, but we're here. We're going to fix it. We have, found the issue at least in the very beginning, which is always good, rather than, pushing through and then realizing that, oh my gosh, we've already released the steel. It's very hard to change steel after you've released it. We've already released the steel and then we can't change it. No, this was ahead of the steel being approved and everything like that. So we were able to get with the engineer, rescan, scrape, get extra workers to help scrape the walls, get it cleaned up. And then, of course, there were other issues that happened throughout the life of the project. But like the fact that like it was all hands on deck and we all were very much focused on how do we solve this problem together. There was no finger pointing. at all. We worked toward it, and we ended up actually finishing right. We ended up finishing right on time. We were not over budget. Everyone was safe. We had no incidents. And it was an amazing, amazing project. And the owner was ecstatic. I actually still have his number. So that's one of the best things about a project is, you know, kind of similar to a marriage. I want to believe. I've never been married, so I'm gonna give that caveat. Like, you go through things. Like, a successful marriage is not one where, we're running through the fields happy all the time. No, you go through some things and you come out the other side together and even stronger and better than what you were when you initially started. So that was probably one of the best projects I've worked on.
Oh, I love it. So what you mean to tell me is that you were the perfect project manager in this project.
Actually, well, no, I was actually a project engineer then, but yes, I was a perfect project engineer. Well, I mean, hey, I'm not, like I said, I do not have an ego, so I am not going to take.
I'll do it for you.
Oh, well, thank you, Samantha. All right.
I love that. I love that your favorite moment is literally coming together and problem solving and doing it in a professional manner where you just learn to respect each other more. Like, that's an amazing moment to have. Like, because I'm not going to lie, I wouldn't have expected a possible future mistake to be your favorite moment, but being able to resolve it in a manner that was satisfying for everyone, and then also having a very happy client was your moment. That says so much about you in general. Like, yes, I fixed this. And I love it.
Yeah.
So you already kind of talked about this a little bit, but what advice would you give to women who are wanting to get into this field?
Come on in. Honestly, I've worked with women who started out in architecture and they switched to construction. I have worked with nurses who came into construction. Like, literally, be ready and willing to learn. Be ready and willing to, be in and around a team of people who are there to support you, to make sure that we have a goal in mind. Be ready and willing to know that you will be surrounded by men who will have, vulgar jokes sometimes. It's not going to be always PC. That is the true, honest truth of it all. But as long as there's that expectation, and I think, come on in. It's really not as hard or as misogynistic as assumed. I think if you can find the right company, find the right team, because I can't speak for everyone. Once you find the right fit, then it's really how much you're willing to put in to yield what you want out of it at the end of the day. Because construction, one of the beauties and hardships of it is you can't put in very little and expect a lot back. So as long as you're ready and willing to put in the work to learn as much as you possibly can, because there is a lot to learn, get your head in that logical mindset, it's really green light.
What would you say to those who are getting ready to go to college, getting ready to go prepare for their studies, that want to be in civil engineering? What would you tell them, and how would you encourage them to go into those fields?
I don't know if it would be encouragement, but get ready for a lot of math. Like, it's a lot of math. And then once you get past all the maths, all the diffie Qs and all the things, then it's just you start to go into the movement and understanding movement and understanding, like, stationary, what actual live loads are versus dead loads, and like understanding aspects of infrastructure. So how would I encourage the younger generation? I don't know how I would encourage them. It's just don't let anything outside of an inability to understand math hold you back. Because to be honest, that's the only thing. Like if it's society, if it's friends, if it's teachers telling you certain things because of their own assumptions, because of their own, undealt whatever, that's not something for you to carry. If you know for yourself that you like physics, like, wait a minute, I like magnetism, I like physics, I like chemistry, because you do have to do a little bit of chemistry. I like math, like it speaks to me, I understand it, I get it. Then don't let anything else hold you back. Just go towards what actually speaks to you and you can comprehend and you feel like you can succeed in. Find advocates, because sometimes you can't. It's a little bit harder to go through life alone. So make sure to find friends, find a support system, find advocates within the faculty, so then you can lean on them if you do have certain difficulties, because those math classes are not easy. I'll say that much. I acknowledge it. Like, they're not easy. For me, Calc 3 killed me. I was not okay. I was in that TA's office every day. But I realized, I was like, I know I'm good at this, but this specific class itself is really not doing me. Like, is making me question my intelligence, to be honest with you. I really went through a whole existential crisis in that class, and physics too. Terrible. But yeah, those two classes really made me question myself. So that's when I leaned on my support system, on my classmates, on classmates who had taken the class the previous semester, and just keep going towards what feels right. That's all I can really say.
It is good advice.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. It's been a delight to have you. Where can the good listeners find you?
I've been working towards having a content creator social media presence. And I've created the username Torn Thoughts, and it's torn period thoughts, where it's going to be an account based on being human. Basically, the best way I can explain it is accepting that I may have an opinion about something one day, but as life progresses, I may come onto some additional information. A friend or some other source of information will come to me where the opinion that I may have stated the previous day is completely debunked. And it's accepting the fact that that's part of humanity, that's part of maturing, is understanding that I don't know everything. And so it's trying to vocalize and voice who I am, things that I like to do, opinions that I have about certain things, but also being ready and willing to debunk any and all things that may have been wrong in a previous post. So that's kind of the channel that I really that I'm planning on creating. The usernames are there. Thus far, only TikTok has any kind of content, which is fitness, and it's like body progress. I do plan on starting to record in Zumba class.
Oh,
Samantha,
no.
You might be a part of it. Maybe your leg. Maybe your leg.
Maybe my leg. Even better.
Yeah. So I wanna record and post my fitness journey, nutrition, epiphanies, meditation, the highs and lows of meditation. I feel like a lot of people will try to talk about, oh my gosh, yeah, just do 10 minutes a day and it's been so rewarding. Well, I've been doing 20 minutes a day and I still don't feel anything. So, hey, world, what am I doing wrong? Help me out, and accepting that I don't know. I want to create a place online that is just humanity and reality of being an adulting, trying to adult in this world realistically without trying to sell like a solution. Just acknowledging, life's highs and lows.
Torn.thoughts. And that's on both Instagram and TikTok?
Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube.
Well, that's awesome. That's really exciting. So listeners, definitely go check that out. See Samantha's leg perhaps in a cameo.
No, thank you.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on, Ivy. This has been a great conversation. There's so much more we could talk about, so you're welcome back anytime.
Yay.
But yeah, thank you so much.
Thank y'all. Thank you, Samantha. Thank you, Annie. I appreciate y'all so much.
And listeners, if you would like to contact us, you can email us at stephanieandmomstuff@iheartmedia.com. You can find us on Twitter at momstuffpodcast or on Instagram and TikTok at Stuff One Never Told You. We're also on YouTube. We have a TeePublic store and we have a book you can get wherever you get your books. Thanks as always to our super producer Christina, our executive producer Maya, and our contributor Joey.
Thank you.
And thanks to you for listening. Stuff One Never Told You is a production by iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, you can check out the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.